Have you ever felt like you're living in two worlds at the same time? One world is visible, the conversations, routines, and expectations everyone can see. The other exists entirely inside your mind, a place where you constantly analyze people, search for deeper meaning, and somehow sense things before they happen. And because of that, you've probably spent years wondering something uncomfortable. Why do you feel different, even when you're surrounded by people? Not superior, not better, just different. And if that's true, there may be a psychological reason hiding beneath the surface. But before we get there, there's something important you need to understand. Because what makes this personality type rare isn't what most people think. You notice things others miss. A slight shift in someone's tone, a forced smile, the tension hidden behind a simple sentence. Most people hear words. You hear what exists underneath them. Over time, this creates a strange experience. You become the person others confide in, the one who understands, the one who listens. Yet somehow, you often feel misunderstood yourself. This pattern affects more than relationships. It affects decisions, careers, and identity. You can spend hours thinking about a future possibility that may never happen, not necessarily because you're anxious, but because your mind naturally searches for patterns. Psychologists sometimes describe this as intuitive processing. Your brain continuously connects separate pieces of information into larger meanings. The gift is insight. The cost is overthinking. And that's where many INFJs get stuck. Not in confusion, but in excessive understanding. The more perspectives you see, the harder it becomes to choose just one. But what if this isn't a flaw? Many people assume rare personality traits are special abilities. They're not. They're adaptations. Traits develop because the brain learns certain ways of interacting with the world. For INFJs, the mind often becomes highly attuned to emotional and social information. Imagine a radio receiver. Most people hear the strongest station. You hear multiple frequencies at once. The result is deeper awareness, but also more mental noise. So if you've spent years feeling different, it doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It may simply mean your brain is processing reality through a less common lens. And once you understand how that lens works, many of your struggles begin to make sense. Because the mechanism behind this personality type is surprisingly simple. Think of your mind as a lighthouse. Most people focus on what's directly in front of them. The lighthouse scans the horizon constantly, searching for patterns, possibilities, and hidden signals. This relates to two psychological processes. The first is pattern recognition. The brain naturally compresses information into predictions about what might happen next. The second is emotional simulation. You don't just understand what people feel. You mentally recreate parts of their emotional state inside your own mind. It's almost like running multiple invisible simulations at once. What will happen? How will they react? What does this really mean beneath the surface? This creates remarkable insight, but it also consumes cognitive energy. And that's why many INFJs feel exhausted after social interactions that others find easy. They're processing far more information than they realize. Which brings us to the signs. The first sign is that solitude feels restorative rather than lonely. You need time alone to reduce cognitive stimulation. Your brain uses solitude the way a computer uses sleep mode. Without it, mental noise begins to accumulate. After a busy weekend, you may crave a quiet walk or an evening alone instead of another social gathering. It's not antisocial behavior, it's psychological recovery. The second sign is that you instinctively search for meaning. You rarely enjoy information without context. Behavioral psychologists call this meaning-making. Your brain feels rewarded when separate experiences connect into a larger story. That's why random conversations, books, or events often feel connected in your mind. You're not just collecting information, you're building patterns. The third sign is emotional absorption. You don't simply notice emotions, you absorb them. Mirror neuron systems help humans understand others by internally simulating aspects of their experiences. For you, this process often feels stronger. A stressed friend can leave you feeling emotionally drained long after the conversation ends. You walk away carrying emotions that were never originally yours. The fourth sign is future-oriented thinking. You frequently imagine outcomes before they happen. This relies on predictive processing, one of the brain's most important functions. The brain constantly forecasts possible futures based on past information. You simply spend more time inside those forecasts. The challenge is that intuition and anxiety can sometimes feel similar. Understanding the difference becomes one of the most important skills you'll ever learn. The fifth sign is authenticity sensitivity. You quickly detect inconsistency between words and behavior. Humans naturally track social signals, but your attention system often prioritizes them more strongly. As a result, superficial interactions can feel strangely exhausting. You're not reacting to what's being said. You're reacting to the gap between what's being said and what's actually being felt. The sixth sign is private intensity. Others may see you as calm, reserved, or quiet, but internally, your thoughts are active and complex. You process deeply before speaking. This is why people are often surprised when you finally share what's on your mind. They see the silence, but they don't see the depth behind it. The seventh sign is helping before asking. You naturally anticipate needs. This comes from heightened perspective taking. You're constantly modeling what other people might be experiencing, but this strength can become a trap. When you're always reading others, you can forget to read yourself. You become fluent in everyone else's emotions while losing touch with your own. And the eighth sign may be the most important. You often feel like you don't fully belong, not because you're disconnected from people, but because your attention is focused on layers of experience that many people rarely discuss. You think about meaning, identity, purpose, and emotional depth in ways that aren't always reflected in everyday conversations. The good news is that belonging doesn't come from becoming more like everyone else. It comes from understanding how your mind already works. So what do you do with this understanding? First, separate intuition from emotion. Write your predictions down and revisit them later. This trains your brain to distinguish genuine pattern recognition from temporary emotional states. Instead of assuming a friendship is changing, record what you're noticing and look for evidence over time. Second, schedule solitude intentionally. Recovery works best when it's planned. Neuroscience shows that the brain restores attentional resources during periods of reduced stimulation. A quiet evening often prevents burnout better than a desperate escape after weeks of exhaustion. Third, practice emotional boundaries. When someone shares a problem, ask yourself a simple question. Is this feeling theirs or mine? That single question interrupts emotional absorption and creates a small amount of psychological distance. Fourth, choose one future instead of carrying 10. The brain experiences uncertainty as mental load. Selecting one direction reduces cognitive strain, even when the choice isn't perfect. Clarity often comes after movement, not before it. Think back to the lighthouse. Its job isn't to chase every signal. Its job is to remain steady. That's the mental model. Not absorbing everything, not predicting everything, simply noticing, understanding, and then choosing where to focus. Because the strength of this personality isn't sensitivity alone, it's selective attention, the ability to see beneath the surface without getting lost beneath it. Maybe you've spent years trying to understand why you feel different, why certain environments drain you, why some conversations stay with you for days, why meaning matters so much. The answer may not be that you're broken. It may be that your mind was built to notice what others overlook. And if that's true, perhaps the goal was never to become less sensitive. Perhaps the goal was to learn how to carry that sensitivity without letting it carry you. And that changes everything.